Part 166. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1651. Fu Bao, wearing only a pink floral cotton jacket and cotton slippers, chased him out of the house. When he saw the scene and heard the sound, he burst out laughing. Lu Erxian, you are so ashamed. It's so funny. He actually thought he turned into a girl by wearing girl's clothes. Lu Erxian twisted his waist, put his hands on his hips and said, "Sister, I know you are jealous." "Am I jealous of you?" Fu Bao pointed to her nose. Seeing Lu Erxian nod fiercely, she snorted, "You talk so much and don't even look in the mirror. Just because I'm cute and pretty, I can use it. Are you jealous? Say, who taught you to wear my clothes and shoes?" She knew that Lu Erxian definitely didn't have the brains to do it, and he just thought about it every day. Lu Erxian's eyes were rolling, and he would not admit that he heard Dun Dun and Zhuang Zhuang whispering under the quilt. "They say that only girls wear girls' clothes. If you wear your sister's clothes, won't you become a girl? Gee, he is really the smartest kid in the world, no, the smartest little girl." While shaking his head, the red woolen threads tied loosely in his pigtails that could not restrain his violent movements fell off one after another. Dun Dun and Zhuang Zhuang put on their own clothes and shoes in an orderly manner in the house. It was great that no two bears were causing trouble this morning and no two bears were wearing the wrong clothes. Xiong sometimes wears the wrong clothes accidentally, but most of them wear their clothes on purpose, because their clothes are cleaner than Xiong's, and they often tuck sweaters and pants under the quilt. They don't feel cold at all when they get up early. On the other hand, Lu Erxian often forgets to put his own under the quilt, and it is so cold that he doesn't even want to wear it. Zhuang Zhuang rolled his eyes. "Third brother, will fourth brother react? Does he have that kind of brain?" Dun Dun asked. Zhuang Zhuang thought for a moment and shook his head. "No, fourth brother only thinks about eating and playing, and he always defaults on his debts. That's too bad. After drinking my own rock sugar pear water last night, I came to snatch his." Feng Qingxiu was worried about her youngest son's physical condition and ignored her son Xiong's funny behavior. Unexpectedly, as soon as she walked into their bedroom, she heard the conversation between the two little guys. She didn't know what to say. There is no way, Lu Erxian usually makes people angry. "Dun Dun, Zhuang Zhuang, come here and wash your face and put on the cream," Feng Qingxiu called them, and immediately saw the two little guys covering their mouths, pretending to be innocent and leaning towards them, and called out Mom in a flattering manner. "Did you ask Xiong to wear sister's clothes?" Feng Qingxiu knelt down to face them. "You can forgive once, but you can't let them plot the second time." Dun Dun shook his head and took all the responsibility on himself, without mentioning that it was Zhuang Zhuang's idea. "No, Mom, Zhuang Zhuang and I didn't teach Erxian to do this. We just whispered in bed with Zhuang Zhuang about women. Only children wear girls' clothes, just like their sister always wears her new clothes. Why Erxian wears her sister's clothes? I think only Erxian himself knows. He probably thinks that he will become a girl by wearing his sister's clothes. Children." Feng Qingxiu tapped his nose and said, "They say people should not be judged by their appearance, but I have learned a lot today. You two little guys, you are so clever and playful. Don't do this again." "But the fourth brother is too bad," Zhuang Zhuang flat-mouthed, not knowing how to be humble to his younger brother. "Mom, don't blame the third brother. It was me who told the third brother, not the third brother who told me." Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1652. Feng Qingxiu was stunned for a moment. "My brother is bad. He has parents to teach him and resolve matters face to face. Mom and Dad have always made clear rewards and punishments. If he does something bad, he will definitely be punished. He will be punished by not eating and writing big characters. But, you guys don't get into the habit of scheming against Erseong behind your back. You are brothers and your intelligence should not be used in this regard. After listening to Feng Qingxiu's words, Dun Dun lowered his head and thought for a moment, then raised his head and said, I understand, Mom. I remember it too. After Zhuang finished speaking, he turned his head and coughed a few times. The uncomfortable feeling was a little lighter than yesterday. Mom, I still want to drink rock sugar pear water. You can wait a little longer and let the fourth brother drink more. Half a bowl. Feng Qingxiu said distressedly, okay, Mommy will make you some sugar water in a minute. Let's wash our faces first. Dun Dun and Zhuang followed her obediently to the door of the main room. Half a basin of warm water was already placed on the basin shelf. Lu Zhang tried his best to make Lu Erxian understand that wearing girls' clothes would not make him a girl. The naughty boy entered the house dejectedly, pulled off his scarf, kicked off his fur shoes, and took off his red woolen coat and returned it to Fu Bao. Got into his bedroom and got dressed. Under Feng Qingxiu's instruction, Dun Dun and Zhuang expressed their apologies to Erxian, who buttoned the wrong button when he came out. Okay, you are really bad, you deliberately made me look embarrassed, Lu Erxian yelled, jumping up and down, I'm angry, I'm really angry, I want to eat 3 bowls of rice, and eat all Dun Dun and Zhuang eggs, eat it, or I won't forgive you. Dun Dun and Zhuang thought for a moment and agreed to his request. Isn't it just 2 eggs? If they don't eat today, they can eat tomorrow. Anyway, there is an egg given to them every day. If they can get forgiveness from my dear friend, they will not have any burden. Everyone was still laughing uncontrollably, feeling that what happened today could be remembered for 100 years. Guan Yu and Jojo did not stay here long, and returned to the capital after staying for 2 days, taking with them the clothes, shoes, socks, letters, and money that Feng Qingxiu had prepared for the old people at home. Although there are few places to spend money, there is still a place to spend money. The day after they left, Zibao sneaked into his parents' bedroom and handed a handkerchief to his mother. What is this? Feng Qingxiu felt heavy after receiving it in her hand. Zibao sat down on the chair and said, Sister-in-law Jojo gave it to me before she left. She said that my mother will go abroad to participate in an exchange meeting next year. The foreign exchange our family will exchange may not be enough, because there are regulations for exchange of foreign exchange. Mother can take the gold bars with her sold abroad to exchange money. Feng Qingxiu opened it and saw that it was indeed a large yellow croaker as long and as thick as 2 index fingers. According to the old system, 1 tael weighs 10 taels, and 2 taels weighs 20 taels. 1 tael weighs 37.8 grams, and the total weight is 756 grams. Although the price of gold has increased internationally, the purchase price of domestic banks is still more than 8 yuan per gram. Calculated at 8 yuan, these 2 gold bars can be exchanged for 6,000 yuan, which is a huge sum of money, compared with that box of jewelry. The current market price is much more expensive. The astronomical price of jewelry and jadeite occurred decades later when the economy was developing. At this time, it was really worthless. This kid, why are you so polite? You know that our family is not short of money. Feng Qingxiu frowned, and she didn't expect that Jojo would have gold bars in his hands. It seemed to be issued in Shanghai during the Republic of China. Zibao raised her eyebrows, because everyone loves Mom very much. Mom is good to us, and we are also good to Mom. If their mother treats them badly, they will naturally not think about their mother everything. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1653. Unconsciously, 1973 has come to an end, and it is also the 12th lunar month. Wuchen was still covered in ice and snow, and the snow piles shoveled by the soldiers on both sides of the road remained there for a long time. Although there are only more than 560 people left in the first batch of the Special Forces unit and they are still undergoing various trainings, the second batch of 2,000 new recruits has been successfully arrived, and Feng Qingxiu is busy again. Fortunately, not many soldiers have been injured recently. It was just some minor ailments that were not difficult to solve, so on New Year's Day she could spend time at home with Lu Zhang, who had no work arrangements. The night before New Year's Day is the Laba festival. I ate laba porridge in the morning and continued to eat the rest in the evening. Feng Qingxiu had prepared the materials for participating in the medical exchange meeting. When she saw a few children doing nothing and seemingly ignorant of the sufferings of the world, she wanted to take them to the orphanage to see the poor life of those children. Lu Zhang thought for a moment, okay, we should let them know that food and clothing are hard-earned. Brothers Lu Tianwan and brother Guancheng all suffered from not having enough food and clothing when they were young, including Feng Qingyun, but from Zibao down, the 5 children have not only endured hardships, but even a mouthful of whole grains made their throats irritate. Several of them, the elderly, feel very distressed. Usually, coarse and fine grains are mixed together when cooking at home. Naturally, they cannot feel the difference between coarse grains and fine grains. Get some money before you go and give it to Director Lin, so that the children in the orphanage can have a better spring festival. No more, no less, 200 is enough, plus the money given this year, there is also 800, it's gone, and prepare some more food. 50 yuan a month is said to be the living expenses for Dang Nianan, but in fact Dang Nianan can't spend that much at all. Biscuits and the like are too luxurious. No matter how full you are, just prepare 400 meat buns. If there are less than 200 children, each person can share 2. Lu Zhang hummed, then let's go early tomorrow morning. We can go to a few more state-owned restaurants to buy buns. We can't buy all the buns in one restaurant. We will have dinner with the children at the orphanage at noon and hand over some food stamps to the orphanage's canteen. When the time comes, don't forget to tell the canteen to cook the meals they usually eat, and not to prepare meals just because we're here. They are both decisive people who take action immediately after making a decision. Early the next morning, before dawn, Feng Qingxiu slipped the 5 children out of bed, patted Lu Erxian who was lying on the bed and refused to get up. Little lazy boy, get up, Mom and Dad will take you out to learn more. As soon as he heard that he could go out to play, Lu Erxian's mind suddenly cleared up. Although the facilities in the military compound are all available and even better than those outside, children always yearn for the sky outside. They always feel that the world outside is huge and the people and things are more interesting. This time we drove 2 jeeps, a family of 7, together with 2 guards and Yayan who drove the car. Entering Wuchen City, the car parked in front of a state-owned hotel. Lu Zhang and the guard went to buy steamed buns. Feng Qingxiu took the triplets in a car behind and waited. Dun Zhuang was fine, and he usually studied to make them calm down. Lu Erxian felt like he had a needle stuck in his butt, squirming around dishonestly. I want to get out of the car and play with Daddy. Feng Qingxiu gathered Zhuang's scarf, held her forehead and said, okay, when you go to the next state-owned hotel, let Uncle Lu Ran take you down. Don't cry out about the cold. I won't care if you get frozen. Okay, Lu Erxian said loudly, I'm not afraid of the cold at all. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1654. When they parked at the second state-owned hotel, Lu Erxian pushed the door open and followed Lu Ran out. He followed Lu Zhang on his feet and stood on tiptoes to watch Lu Zhang pay money and food stamps, and put steamed buns in the basket the waiter brought them. The bun was wrapped in slightly yellowed gauze, and covered with a small quilt to keep warm. Dad, why did you buy so many buns? I want to eat them too. Lu Erxian also counted the buns when the waiter was counting them. There were so many buns that he couldn't finish them all. Lu Zhang took the change from the waiter and touched his head. Let's go to the welfare home to eat with the children. Kid. Lu Erxiang's eyes were full of expectation. After visiting 7 or 8 state-owned restaurants and buying a total of 440 meat buns for 44 yuan, Lu Zhang took his family and 2 guards to the children's welfare home where Dang Nianan was located. During the winter season, adults get up later than usual, not to mention the children in the orphanage. Their arrival woke up all the children. Dean Lin rushed over panting. The 2 leaders came here early in the morning, how can they say hello? Lu Zhang rarely spoke to lesbians when it had nothing to do with work, so Feng Qingxiu came forward and said with a smile, "You're here, why are you saying hello? Do you have to say hello and make a pomp to look good? We just bring you come and see the children in the orphanage. Comrade Lin, are you cooking in the cafeteria? We brought about 400 buns for breakfast. Just make some porridge. Don't forget to cook some for the 9 of us." Lu Zhang interjected, "The weather is very cold, and the buns will cool down quickly. Covering the basket with a quilt doesn't seem to help. When cooking porridge, put it on the grate to boil. Cold buns will easily cause diarrhea. It's better to eat the vegetarian buns after they're cold, but it's not good to eat the meat buns after they're cold." Dean Lin rubbed his hands and said, How embarrassing is this? 2 leading comrades, you 2 have helped the orphanage a lot because of your attention. Many soldiers and local cadres have donated money and materials, I remember every word. You're welcome, call the canteen to cook. We haven't eaten yet, so we're waiting. Feng Qingxiu patted her hand. You can ask someone to go to the canteen and tell them to cook whatever they usually eat. Don't do it because of us and do it well. As for you, take us to see the living environment of our children. We have been pampered since childhood. We have never seen the suffering in the world. We don't want them to know the word cherish, let alone raise them into their extravagant and wasteful character. Dean Lin expressed her understanding that the more reasonable people are, the more they pay attention to their children's education. Before liberation, she had lived in the capital, attended a girls' school, and had seen the behavior of scholarly families. Each of the 6 children has plump muscles and bones and outstanding appearance. It is obvious at a glance that they have never suffered or gone hungry. So, Dean Lin asked someone to tell the cafeteria to make dried sweet potato porridge as usual, and put the steamed buns in the basket on top of the pot to prevent the steamed buns from getting cold after the porridge was cooked. Then, Dean Lin took them to visit the accommodation environment of the orphanage. The walls are dusty and mottled, and every room is empty with only a big kong, and the quilts are shabby. There are many children lying on each kong. Boys sleep in one room with boys, and girls sleep with girls in another room, huddled together for warmth. The older ones are in their teens, and the younger ones are in need of food and taken care of by the older children. Without exception, they are all skinny, disheveled, and ragged. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1655. Seeing them, Feng Qingxiu remembered the first time she met Feng Qingyun, brothers Lu Tianjun and Guancheng brothers. Familiar scenes, familiar looks. Seeing children like this and thinking of the happiness of having enough food and clothing at home, Feng Qingxiu felt extremely sad. Suddenly, she felt a little ashamed. It can be seen from this that although more than 10 years have passed since the 3-year difficult period, and some fertile areas have had bumper harvests every year, and there has never been such a large-scale famine, there are still many people who do not have enough to eat, especially those without food. A child without a father. After all, there are many hidden dangers in planned economy and collective production. Just because it is collective labor, some people work hard, and some people cheat and cheat. Coupled with natural and man-made disasters, there are strict regulations on planting and breeding, so the current situation has been created. Some children in the room had gotten up, and some were still lying on the kong. Now they all looked at Lu Zhang and his party, at the tall and burly military leaders, at the bright and elegant lesbians and the handsome or pretty or, the cute child couldn't help but tug on his clothes, trying to make himself look better, but it was just a useless effort, and his face suddenly turned red. "Hello children, I've been here in Wuchen for more than a year and this is my first time to visit you. I hope you won't be offended." Feng Qingxiu greeted them cordially and calmly, hugged them with her hands and sat on the kong to watch. A little baby girl with a sweet smile on her face. The smile on the face of the little baby girl who was about 1 year old became even brighter, and she tenderly called mother. Feng Qingxiu recognized the baby girl as Dang Nianen from the red mole on her left temple. She is Nianen. She has been eating milk powder for 8 months. She is fairer and fatter than other children. It's a pity that no one has come to adopt the child. Otherwise, people who are willing to adopt a girl will take a fancy to her at first sight. She is really destined to be with you. This is the first time I heard her call me mom, Dean Lin said from the side. I recognize it. Feng Qingxiu kissed Dang Nianen's cheek. The white fat that Dean Lin said was actually a little better than the children around him. He was only 1 year old and less than 20 pounds. There are no white and fat children of the same age. The other children looked at Dang Nianen with envy, but he was actually looked at differently by the leader. Zibao carried the candies that he asked Lu Zhang to buy at the service club, and asked his younger brothers and sisters to hand out candies to everyone, 1 piece for each person, not milk candies, but hard candies. He bought a total of 200 to 300 yuan, using his pocket money. Feng Qingxiu's overseas remittance voucher. Seeing this scene, Feng Qingxiu felt very happy. After eating the sweet candy, many children showed bright smiles and were reluctant to swallow the saliva in their mouths, wishing that the candy could stay in their mouths for a while longer. Dean Lin said, "Do you still remember the biscuits we ate last year?" The 2 leaders also bought them for everyone. "Thank you, leader." Pure gratitude comes from a high and low voice. Feng Qingxiu said gently, "Everyone is so well behaved. You're welcome. We will come to visit you again in the future." After handing Dang Nianen to the girl who was taking care of her, Feng Qingxiu touched the heads of the 2 children closest to her, turned to Dean Lin and said, "Comrade Lin, let's go to the next room and take a look. Candy cubes are distributed to each child." "Okay." After leaving the room, Dean Lin whispered, "There are only children under the age of 16 in the orphanage." Some of the children over the age of 16 were lucky enough to find jobs, and some responded to the country's call and went to the mountains and countryside. No matter where they are, I hope they can grow up safely, get married and have children smoothly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1656. Peace and smoothness, these words express Dean Lin's blessings to all the children. Before entering the next room, Feng Qingxiu suddenly heard the sound of reading. The voice was very low, a bit like mumbling to herself, but the content was a selection of poems by leaders. Looking around, they saw a very thin young man in the corner with his back to them, facing the wall and mumbling something. While reciting the poem, he stretched out his hand and made imaginary scratches on the wall. Noticing the gazes of Lu Zhang and Feng Qingxiu, Dean Lin sighed, "His name is Wang Zhao. He is 15 years old. He has been very smart since he was a child. When I teach children to read, he is always the first to remember that I teach them to recite quotations and poems, and he can memorize them after listening to them a few times. I know that he really wants to go to school, but life in our orphanage has always been very tight. If it weren't for the support of the 2 leaders last year, he would have to buy food and vegetables. We may not be able to afford it. I don't dare to let him go to school. If he goes to school, how can other children who don't go to school be willing? I can only teach him more of my knowledge. Feng Qingxiu heard something strange. This child's surname is Wang, didn't it mean that the boy's surname was Guo and the girl's surname was Dang? Dean Lin made a sound and said in a low voice, "Tell me this child came to the orphanage at the age of 7. His real surname is Wang, and his name is Wang Zhao. Since he has an origin, he didn't change his surname." "What's the origin?" Feng Qingxiu asked. "His father Wang Rong was a veteran. He saved someone 8 years ago but died himself. Wang Zhao's mother remarried under the arrangement of her natal family. The other party was unable to raise Wang Zhao, so she was sent to an orphanage. Lin Yuan." A little compassion flashed in the leader's eyes. "Wang Zhao went to school. His father always told him that knowledge is everything and he must study hard and make progress every day, so he worked very hard. He was also very sensible and often made paper. Leave it to me to earn money from box jobs." Lu Zhang frowned and thought of Guancheng Guanyu's biological mother. Feng Qingxiu looked at Wang Zhao, who was immersed in studying, turned to Dean Lin and said, "Tomorrow I will ask someone to send you a set of textbooks, ranging from elementary school to high school, and I will find a way to find you a teacher who is full of knowledge. If someone comes to teach children to read, let the child study hard and don't waste this talent. Reading is a good thing and it is wise and righteous." Dean Lin was overjoyed and said, "Thank you, leader, for your concern. She has read books, and of course she knows that there is no harm in reading, so she has been teaching the children with all her heart, but she is too busy and needs to be responsible for everything in the orphanage, so it is difficult to teach them to read and read every day." Wang Zhao faintly heard their voices, turned around, and hurriedly came over to say hello. Seeing his handsome and gentle face, Lu Zhang was shocked, grabbed his arm, stared at his eyebrows, and the hitching post next to his left ear. "Your father's name is not Wang Rong, his name is Wang Erxi, right? This look is clearly the same as that of his old comrade Wang Erxi." Wang Zhao was stunned, shook his head and said, "My father's name is Wang Rong, who is Wang Erxi? I don't know. Ajiang, what's wrong? Do you know him?" Lu Zhang looked at Wang Zhao's face while answering his wife's question. "This child looks very similar to an old comrade I haven't contacted for more than 10 years, but he is much younger and looks very immature. The last thing he gave me is one letter is that he gave birth to a son who was born with a bit of a hitch. My child, let me ask you, is your father missing 3 fingers on his left hand?" "How do you know?" Wang Zhao blurted out. Lu Zhang felt sad and happy at the same time. The good thing is that we finally have news about this old comrade, but the sad thing is that he has died trying to save others. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1657. Seeing this scene and hearing this conversation, not to mention Dean Lin and the 2 guards, even Feng Qingxiu was stunned. "Ajiang, is this true?" Feng Qingxiu asked, but she didn't feel strange in her heart, because she knew very well the fact that Lu Zhang had been in the army for more than 20 years and had comrades all over the country. Those comrades who really stayed in the army and continued to develop. On the contrary, they are a minority. Lu Zhang held Wang Zhao's hand tightly and said, "It won't be wrong. The appearance won't be wrong, the surname won't be wrong, and the horse post won't grow just right. The last letter between ER11 and I was 15 years ago, I haven't contacted him since. My letter was like a piece of cake after I sent it. Erxi is from southern Hebei, not from Wuchen in northern Hebei, so I didn't inquire in detail after I came to the army. Even if we inquire, we probably won't be able to get any specific information. Erxi has changed his name and is no longer alive. After leaving the army, many veterans did not want to make their past glory public, so they changed their names and continued to devote themselves to national construction to prevent the world from treating them differently because of their merits. A large part of this type of veterans have made great achievements in the army, and some of them hold very high positions. When he was young, an old regimental commander had achieved 2 first-class merits, 3 second-class merits and 5 third-class merits. He retired from the army 20 years ago and has not heard from him until now. He guessed that the old regiment leader probably changed his name like Wang Erxi. Wang Zhao was at a loss. Is this tall and mighty leader in front of him his father's comrade? It's incredible. Feng Qingxiu looked at Wang Zhao carefully for a moment, and suddenly something moved in her heart. She stepped forward and patted Lu Jiang's arm. "Zhang, you see how excited you are. Don't scare the child. If you have any questions, we can take it easy after breakfast." Explain. "Yes, the meal is ready. Let's go eat first, so as not to starve the children." Dean Lin looked at the 6 stunned children. Zibao held the candy in his pocket and said, "Grandma Lin, can you wait until we finish handing out the candy?" The triplets nodded. They couldn't even eat candy. They were so pitiful. Their clothes were all torn. A smile flashed in Dean Lin's eyes, and he bent down and looked at Zibao. "Of course. Thank you for your kindness and thoughtfulness, which has brought happiness to the children in our orphanage. A piece of candy is a child's hard-won happiness." Lu Erxian was more expressive. He took out 2 pieces of candy from Zibao's pocket, ran over and stuffed them into Wang Zhao's hands. "You are the brother of my father's comrade. I will give you an extra piece of candy. Don't tell others, otherwise they will not tell you happy." He winked at Wang Zhao, then turned around and went to hand out sweets with his brother. There were less than 200 children, and the older boys and girls had already left the room to do laundry and cook, so the 6 children were busy working, but not everyone had a candy. Feng Qingxiu said, "Let's eat first. During the meal, let Dean Lin say something. If you haven't eaten any candy, come and get it yourself. Except for the baby, everyone eats in the cafeteria." Lu Erxian was almost starving after waking up in the morning and working so hard. As soon as he heard about eating, he immediately ran to the first place. Feng Qingxiu raised her hand and looked at her watch. It was already past 9 o'clock. "I heard that the leaders brought meat buns to eat in the morning." All the children were very excited. They waited in the cafeteria early with their rice bowls. They lined up in several long lines and stretched their necks to look at the big baskets on the table. The fat meat buns and the hot dry sweet potato porridge in the wooden barrel were served by several staff members in the orphanage. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1658. Lu Zhang and Feng Qingxiu also lined up with their children, with the children in front and them behind. The children have been living in the army since they were young, and occasionally go to the canteen with their parents to eat. They are used to queuing up for meals. They carry their own rice bowls in a decent manner, and each of them receives 2 meat buns and a bowl of porridge. However, I could only carry 1 bowl of rice with both hands, so I had to ask the guard uncle to use a small bamboo basket for the hot and somewhat scalding buns. Lu Zhang and Feng Qingxiu saw a basket of multi-grain rolls placed on the table. Perhaps the orphanage was worried that the rolls would not be enough to eat, so they heated up some rolls, so the couple each took 2 rolls and filled them with rice without taking the rolls. When the 2 guards saw this, they also took the papers without asking for the buns. Dean Lin hurried over and said, "How can the 2 leaders not eat the steamed buns after they bought them? It's okay. The paper rolls are pretty good. Let's leave the steamed buns to the kids. They were at the end of the line and were not in a hurry to leave." After Feng Qingxiu finished speaking, she asked, "Do you have a plate? I'll put some dried radish on it. The rolls are still good, just eat it with pickles." She saw chopped dried radish in a yellow enamel basin on the table. After hearing this, Dean Lin immediately brought 2 plates over and placed 2 plates of dried radish on Lu Jiang's table. The atmosphere in the cafeteria was very lively. Most of the children were biting into the buns in small bites, intoxicated by the aroma of the meat fillings. Their cherishing attitude made Feng Qingxiu feel sad again. The rolls are made of wheat bran mixed with sweet potato flour and corn flour. For those who are used to eating white flour steamed buns, the taste is not to be mentioned. But except for the 5 Zibao brothers and sisters who had enough food and clothing since childhood, everyone had experienced starvation. A mouthful of rolls, a mouthful of porridge, and a mouthful of dried radish, it was so natural to eat. Children always think what adults eat is delicious, and the triplets couldn't help but stop eating the buns. Lu Erxiang devoured a steamed bun and then jumped off the chair, walked up to Feng Qingxiu, and looked at the dark multi-grain steamed bun in her hand. "Mom, I also want to eat steamed buns, which are different from our family's steamed buns." "Of course it's different. Their steamed buns are usually made from a combination of flour and cornmeal, with the majority of them being flour." Feng Qingxiu broke off a small piece of the paper she had bitten and handed it to his mouth. "I'll tell you in advance, Xiang, if you bite it in your mouth, you have to chew it and swallow it. You are not allowed to spit it out. If you dare to spit it out, I'll spank you." Lu Erxiang agreed readily, but after chewing it twice, he froze. "It tastes so bad, thick and astringent." "Swallow it." Feng Qingxiu's bright eyes stared at him with a hint of severity. Lu Erxiang flattened his mouth, swallowed it, and immediately ran back to his seat, grabbed the remaining buns and took a big bite. "Well, the meat buns are still delicious." "Fourth brother, is the paper delicious?" Zhuang asked him. He and Dun Dun were originally eager to try it, but when they saw Lu Erxiang's expression, they knew it must not be delicious, and they stopped in an instant. Lu Erxiang shook his head violently. "It doesn't taste good. It doesn't taste good at all. It makes my throat hurt." Feng Qingxiu glanced at Dun Dun and Zhuang, who were eating the buns peacefully, and thought that they tasted even if they tasted bad. You can avoid the first grade of junior high school, but you can't avoid the 15th grade. The dried sweet potato porridge made here is not like their rice mixed with dried sweet potatoes. It has more rice and less dried sweet potatoes. It is pure dried sweet potatoes. It is smashed and soaked overnight and cooked directly in a large pot of water. There is nothing else. It is a thin soup with little water, 3/4 of it is filled with water and only 1/4 of the dried sweet potatoes are poured into the bowl. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1659. Lu Erxiang felt that the multi-grain rolls were unpalatable. In fact, the children of the Lu family were used to eating rice, white noodles, and various high-priced foods. It was not difficult to drink some dried sweet potato porridge occasionally. Instead, it felt fresh. Under the supervision of their parents, they ate it honestly. After tasting it carefully, there is no other flavor mixed in. The cooked dried sweet potatoes have a slight sweetness, which is quite delicious. The main reason is that Feng Qingxiu is very strict with the food. She always serves food according to the amount and doesn't allow them to leave any leftovers. Once a habit is formed, it is difficult to change. Zibao is more sensible. He lives with his grandfather in his hometown. He understands the suffering of the world better than his younger siblings and cherishes food very much. After dinner, he and his younger brothers and sisters continued to distribute candies to those who did not receive candies. Lu Ran followed and took care of them, while Lu Zhang, Feng Qingxiu, and Wang Zhao talked in Dean Lin's office. When Lu Zhang pulled Wang Zhao to ask questions, Feng Qingxiu held her chin up and looked at him. She was already certain that the Wang Zhao in front of her was Wang Zhao, a national first-class actor who had been popular for decades since the 1980s. She was her parents' idol and had many titles. When he traveled back in time, Wang Zhao, who was about 60 years old, had already participated in more than 100 film and television works, including leading roles, supporting roles, and supporting roles. Most of them were period dramas and anti-Japanese war themes. It can be said that he was a well-established star. As a veteran actor, he has always kept a low profile and never accepts any advertisements, except for public service announcements. According to reports, Wang Zhao suffered from old stomach problems. When he was young, he lived in an orphanage with little food and clothing. He ate sweet potatoes as his staple food, which ruined his stomach. He resonated with those born in the 1960s and 1970s. He was also born in the 1960s and 1970s. One of my favorite actors. Wang Zhao is very keen on charity. 2/3 of his salary was invested in charity. However, his daily life is very frugal. He wore a woolen suit for more than 20 years before retiring at the turn of the millennium. I have worn jointed leather shoes for 30 years, and a Shanghai gem flower watch for more than 30 years. It is solid and does not contain any moisture. At that time, netizens joked that it showed that the quality of domestic products was excellent, and also said that Wang Zhao's clothes, shoes, socks, and life supplies can be considered antiques. This fact makes countless people admire him, including Feng Qingxiu, who feel that he has played a positive role in the world and does not have the negative images in the entertainment industry such as cheating, tax evasion, extravagance and glitz. Wang Zhao protected his family very well. After all, Feng Qingxiu was an outsider and didn't understand his marital status. After Lu Zhang and Wang Zhao finished talking, they mainly recalled Wang Erxi, also known as Wang Rong. "My child, your father is gone, and I am your father. If you want to go to school, you can go to school, and you don't have to worry about your livelihood in the future." As he spoke, he turned to look at his wife. Feng Qingxiu was very considerate to him. "Yes, Wang Zhao, we will be there in the future." Wang Zhao is already 15 years old and is a handsome young man. They don't have to worry about his life. The so-called contribution is just to support some money, food, and clothing. If it is a little baby waiting to be fed, Feng Qingxiu has to consider it, because they have too many children in the family, and he and Lu Zhang were busy at work and the old man was too old to raise a baby that needed adult care. Wang Zhao shook his head and said, "When I was young, I always wanted to go to school, but now I don't want to go." "Why? Don't you really want to go to school?" "Wang Zhao, you don't have to be polite to us. As his old comrades, your aunt and I have the unshirkable responsibility for your father's unfulfilled responsibilities to you." Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1660. Thank you, uncle and aunt. I'm not polite, I'm telling the truth. Wang Zhao was afraid that they wouldn't believe it, so he quickly came up with his own reasons. "I once secretly listened to the class outside the school, and found that the content of the class was not as good as Mother Lin's. They teach me knowledge in private. Moreover, many students spend 3 days fishing and 2 days drying nets, and the teachers don't teach very seriously, so I don't want to go to school. Besides, I am 15 years old and will join the army soon. It's time to recruit soldiers. Although I am not old enough to be drafted, there is no age limit for recruiting soldiers in the art troupe. I want to give it a try. If it doesn't work, I will find a job or go to the mountains and countryside next year." After living in an orphanage for 8 years and suffering from the harshness of the world, Wang Zhao already had his own life plan. He knew very well that it was better to rely on himself than to rely on anyone else. However, he was very grateful that Lu Zhang cared about his late father's thoughts and was willing to take care of him. A faint smile appeared on his handsome and gentle face, which was enough for Feng Qingxiu to see the niche style that landed on the screen in the early 1980s and became popular all over the country. "He is a bit childish now, but as an adult he is elegant and handsome, but a tough guy but gentle, and he is known as the ever-changing young man. After Lu Jiang and Feng Qingxiu heard what Wang Zhao expressed, they liked him even more. When they were willing to help, the other party had to rely on themselves. This kind of character was especially rare. Since you said so, your Uncle Lu and I respect your choice, Feng Qingxiu said gently. If you encounter difficulties in life, you must not be polite to us. Comradeship is the deepest feeling in the world. Your Uncle Lu and your father have not had contact for 15 years, and they were separated when we learned the news. If we ignore you, how will we face your father in the future? Wang Zhao felt relieved and said softly, "Thank you, Auntie, I understand everything. Okay, let's go see the boys in my family. You can be our guide, let us all know the specific conditions of the orphanage, and let your younger brothers and sisters understand the hardships of life." Feng Qingxiu has not forgotten them. The purpose of this trip. Wang Zhao understood it as soon as he heard it. Okay. The hardships of life are mainly reflected in the four aspects of food, clothing, housing, and transportation. There is nothing to say about transportation. Housing, the accommodation conditions in the orphanage are not impressive either. The buildings are still the ones before the founding of the People's Republic of China. They were all war orphans. Of course, some of them were orphaned by their parents. It was abandoned and was not expanded after the founding of the People's Republic of China. We had already seen the clothes before eating. It was not obvious when they were all in the house. When they came out, they could clearly see many children shivering in the cold wind. The more they looked at the wind and snow, the more uncomfortable they became. People who live in wealthy families, it's hard to imagine the hardships at the bottom. Zibao was well informed and better, while Fuebao, Yayan and the triplets were silent. Even the naughty Erxiang didn't dare to say anything. He stretched out his hand to gather the scarf around his neck, and touched the warm clothes and gloves tied with woolen rope and hung around his neck. "We can't go on like this," Feng Qingxiu whispered to Lu Jiang, looking at the child whose face was red from the cold. Lu Jiang's face had already appeared the wrinkles belonging to his age, and he was becoming more mature and steady. He turned his head and responded in a low voice, "I understand, I know you want to support your children in terms of food and clothing, I will think of a way." Feng Qingxiu hummed. There was still a lot of clothes, a lot of cotton and food in the space, but it was difficult to take them out.